Hey there, welcome to the Jeff and Heidi Show, where you're going to have the opportunity to listen to and learn from everyday entrepreneurs. All right, welcome to the Jeff and Heidi Show. We're excited to have a great guest with us today. Heidi Anderson's with me as my co-host from ECI Secure Pay, and I'm Jeff Heggie from Jeff Heggie Coaching. Today we have Sofia Sunwoo with us, and we're excited to have our conversation with her. And I want to just introduce her to begin with. She's the founder of Ascent Strategy, where she helps female entrepreneurs ranging from artisans to health coaches get their companies off the ground. Sophia is a 3-time startup founder. She sold her first company when she was 22, helping scale the brand to 250 retailers worldwide, and attracted celebrity clientele before she exited. Sophia's second business, helped bring clean water to over 76,000 people in India and Cameroon, has been recognized by Forbes, African Business Review, and ELLE Magazine. She's a Forbes 30 Under 30 honoree, a Fred Alger Finance Award winner, named one of the world's 100 most inspiring women by Salt Magazine and Diageo, and is a Forbes 30 Under 30 All-Star Alumni. So we are definitely excited to have Sophia on with us and have a great conversation. So welcome, Sophia.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
So there's lots of places to start. I want to get into talking about how you help these females start up their companies and stuff, but I want to start with your own entrepreneurial journey. Let's take a step back and learn more about your first company and the process, how you started it, how you grew it, how you exited it, those sort of things. And then I'd love to hear more about the Africa project as well. So
yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So my first business, my college roommate and I started it out of our dorm room. It was kind of an accident. You know, she and I loved going to punk rock concerts when we were younger, but we were really irritated that all of the band t-shirts that they sell at those concerts are really fit for men, but not for women. So for us, it was a way for us to create clothing just so that we can wear it. And I guess it just really struck a chord, and we really just hit the nail on the head as far as a need for the market that, you know, as soon as we sold at our first event, we sold out of a ton of our items. We had offers to buy the company within the first year. And we ended up in 250 retailers. Miley Cyrus ended up wearing our hoodie in People magazine. So it just really snowballed. And I think it had to do with the fact that it was just two pissed off girls that were just like putting all of that passion into creating this clothing line. And I guess it showed. So yeah, we just like continuously built off of the positive response we were getting. You know, this was pre-Facebook. So this was MySpace days where there wasn't businesses weren't even really using MySpace for business at all. So we were really just relying on old school marketing tactics like putting ads in magazines, using word of mouth. I would have friends calling me from like Argentina, like, hey, I just saw one of your hoodies, like someone was wearing it on the street. And it was because we just got really good at using word of mouth marketing, using influencer marketing, especially to just really spread the word. And yeah, we just like continuously built our audience and built our reach for a couple of years. And, you know, I was like in my early 20s at the time. I was still in college, and I realized I really wanted to explore social impact. My business partner wanted to go into artist management. So we started shopping around for buyers. And at that point, we had offers since the first year. So it wasn't too difficult to find buyers at that point. But yeah, once we were ready to sell, you know, we found the right people to buy the company. And yeah, that's kind of how we went from conception to selling. I think the fact that also both my parents are entrepreneurs, so I grew up watching them, and I just understood how much work I had to put in and how quickly I had to move. And my co-founder, she actually started a shaved ice business in Hawaii when she was like 12. So like we just had really strong entrepreneurial minds kind of going at this. So I think it was a mix of that plus just teenager energy and being bored in college energy that really helped that.
I loved your, one of the things that stood out to me in your LinkedIn profile was that you made clothing for scene kids. And my son and his best friend in high school were scene kids, and they're both now married, girls that were scene kids. And I was like,
gosh,
so
that's amazing.
was that part of that brand, that same brand that you're talking about?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's a really strong culture. And I think that's like another thing. Like we were so niched down that we knew our market so well, and it was almost easy at that point when you're that niched down and you really understand your market.
Yeah,
but
I probably bought a lot of your
really
stuff because
awesome.
I, you know, all of his Christmas gifts and birthday gifts were from Hot Topic and all the places that you mentioned that you sold to. I was like, I probably bought some of your stuff.
Oh, that's so funny. I love that.
So one question I have, this was basically pre-social media, because MySpace is pretty much the only thing out there. How did you go about the influencer marketing back then? I mean, I know if you can get Miley Cyrus wearing a hoodie in People magazine, it's great, but how did you approach it?
Yeah, so our main sales floor, so to speak, was big music festivals. So we went on Warped Tour, which is at the time was like all throughout the US and Canada, where you go through multiple cities. Yeah, you know.
Oh yeah.
So that was our main sales floor. So my co-founder, she was excellent at artist management. So she just continuously built these relationships with a bunch of different artists. So if you see your favorite band wearing our clothes on stage, then when they see our tent, like it's very easy to connect the dots and buy the t-shirt that they just saw their favorite band wearing on stage. So we really, really leveraged like the artist market, where we really forged a lot of important relationships with different bands and artists and make sure that they were highly visible. We had artists like wearing our stuff on TV. I mean, with Miley Cyrus, even she was influenced by influencer marketing. So it was her brother that we actually gave the hoodie to, and she became so jealous and obsessed with this hoodie that she actually took it from him. And then it just happened by accident that she was going to Disney World that day, and People magazine happened to like shoot a picture of her. So like influencer marketing really, really worked out for us.
Very cool.
Amazing. What amazing timing on that, right?
Absolutely.
So explain to us the transition. You went through the sale, and then what followed there?
Yeah, so during that time after selling the company, I was still in college, and I took a class so I went to school for business and design strategy, and my professor at the time, he had a lecture where he was talking about how we can use business and design to solve the climate crisis. And that lecture just blew my mind, where I just had no idea that was a possibility, that there were these intersections that we can create between different expertise and really create innovative, creative solutions for big problems. So that really just opened my head up of what are some ways that I can, me coming from a business background, having built a startup already, how can I bring my expertise and work with someone in the social impact space to create something really important. So I ruminated on the idea for a bit. I did my senior thesis on the topic. So I like really studied the topic, and a lot of my friends knew that my interests were in that area. And eventually I got introduced to someone who had been working in water in Southeast Asia and Kenya since he was 15. And he was like, well, I've always wanted to start a water organization, and you have that startup background. So again, it was just me yapping my head off about something for all the time. And eventually like it catches and someone hears about it and like introduces me to the right person. So that's what came about. And so my co-founder Josh and I, we're like a little too courageous for our own good. Like we started the organization, we had a lot of trouble finding our first community to partner with on the first project. And then we received an email where a prince from Cameroon reached out to us and said, hey, I have this like water project in my community that I'm looking for funding partners for. Why don't you come fly out to Cameroon and like meet me and like see if this is possible? So we responded to a Cameroonian prince, and like one thing led to another, and we flew over there, which looking back is absolutely insane. I have no idea how our parents like let us do something like that, but thankfully it ended up being legitimate. And we, you know, started our first community project with that prince in his village, and we just became very well networked in the country and built a team of 6 there. We ended up working with multiple communities like throughout the whole region. And yeah, it was a really, really insane challenge. I think that I have a lot of respect for people in the nonprofit space. I think it's incredibly difficult work where it's not only mentally toiling, but emotionally challenging. And you also have to deal with politics. So you're dealing with issues from all angles. And yeah, so we had challenges that ranged from things like, because the areas we're working in were so remote, there would only be one driver that knew how to drive on the road. So we had this one instance where the driver's wife had malaria. So for 3 months, we couldn't get our pipes to our project location. So what ended up happening is like the community walked like 10 miles to get a pipe and like carry it on their head and then like walk it back to the village one by one. So just things like that, where it's just like insane project management challenges where you can't tell someone's husband to not look after their wife with malaria. So just things like that where it just really stretched me as an entrepreneur to work through those challenges and figure it out. And so yeah, you know, once we were in Cameroon, we expanded to India, which was a whole different different book. Like each country has its own challenges and you almost have to start from scratch. So yeah, it was really interesting. And, you know, working in the nonprofit space, you know, having come from a sales background in my first business, now I had to switch my brain to fundraising and asking people for large gifts. So that was really interesting as well. So yeah, there was a lot of kind of flip-flopping between those two, but I definitely learned so much and just really grew as entrepreneurs between those two businesses.
But it's great
How
that
old
you
were you
had.
at the time?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Sorry.
I was like 24 or something like that. But I was at it at that business for 6 years. So I was in it for a really long time.
So how old were you when you sold the first company?
I was 22 when I sold the first company.
Okay.
So yeah. And then this other business I started when I was like 23, 24. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, what I love is that you were able to come up with such creative workarounds, and that not only that, but that you were able to enroll people in supporting it. Like you could come up with the idea of having villagers carry the pipe, but actually having somebody sign up to do that is a whole nother level. I think that's very impressive.
Yeah, it was really interesting because that's like a pretty sensitive area too, right? Where like we actually didn't ask them to do that because we thought it was quite insensitive to like ask anyone to, but at that point we had just done a really good job of including the community in the conversations, that at that point they had personal buy-in and they felt compelled to offer that on the table. So yeah, just like things like that where you have to really think about things in advance and really convince yourself like there's delayed gratification here. If I do this work up front, then later on they might end up stepping up and helping us in this very sticky situation. So
it's like the relationships are everything, right?
Exactly. Absolutely. 100%.
Cool. So you did that in Cameroon, transferred over to India, and then where did your path take you?
Yeah, at that point I was really burnt out. And I took a break for a little bit. I did some freelancing, and then that eventually kind of led me to where I am today, where that time off really helped me figure out what I wanted to do next and what I was passionate about. And for me, I think during those, I think it was like 10 or so years of me doing the work I was doing, like 9 or 10 years, looking back and reflecting on that, I realized that I could have shortened that timeline as far as like my success trajectory if I had the right coaches, if I took the right courses, if I wasn't so stubborn as far as wanting to DIY everything. So I got to a point where I was like, well, like I have all this knowledge and I'm really passionate about helping entrepreneurs accelerate their success. Like I grew up watching my parents who were immigrants to this country basically turn up to this country with $2 in their pocket, but then through entrepreneurship, build a business just through sheer hard work and vision, and get to a place where they could support a family of 4, live in a nice town, get them through college and things like that. So for me, like entrepreneurship is a really strong empowerment tool. Like to me, that's like the true definition of American dream. And it's like the true vehicle for that. So I really wanted to be the catalyst and the individual that can provide that tool for tons of people, especially women that don't have access to it. I think that with entrepreneurship, there's a lot of bad information out there. There's a lot of articles and YouTube videos where it's like, okay, you just told me a lot of information, but you didn't tell me how to do X, Y, and Z in order to make money. Like you just gave me a bunch of education, but that doesn't lead to money. Like I went to business school and I learned a lot of stuff, but no one taught me how to make money. I had to learn that myself as an entrepreneur. So for me, that's the most powerful tool that an entrepreneur can receive. So through my business, I really wanted to be that person where it's like, no, this is how you make money versus like, this is the information that's really nice to know, but that's not going to make you money.
Right.
That's how I always felt. I got my degree in business, and I came out of that with really very little knowledge of how to run a business. I knew how to work for other businesses, but yeah. So the shift into entrepreneurship and knowing how to, like I said, how to make money is, and a lot of the mindset and everything that comes with that, they don't teach you in college.
Absolutely. Yeah. Unfortunately, even if you go to school for entrepreneurship, they still don't teach you that there either. Right.
So at this point, you're getting quite old. You got to be mid-20s.
No, I've broken the 30 barrier now.
No, I mean this point in where we're at in the story. So where
oh yeah.
What were you doing and where were you at when you got recognized as a Forbes 30 under 30?
Yeah, so I was in my second business. I like just hit the cutoff. I think I was 29 at the time. Yeah. And you know, like it's funny because it's something that I think it's recognition that a lot of entrepreneurs covet. But at the time I was so burnt out that I couldn't even enjoy it, where like all the blood, sweat, and tears that went into my second business, I was just like, like, it's too bad that the recognition doesn't come with a huge sigh of relief or, you know, anything. It doesn't solve any of my problems, like that I was struggling with at the time with the business. So yeah, it was really nice, but it didn't solve any of my problems. And I think that was the biggest upset maybe. But yeah, of course, I really appreciated it and was so grateful. And it was nice to see like my mom's face when I told her about it. But yeah, like it was definitely like bittersweet for sure, because I was like in a very difficult place with my business, and the struggle almost was kind of like not aligned with the recognition that I received.
You know, that's interesting. It was when I was reading the book Shoe Dog, and he was telling the story about the founding of Nike, and realizing that, yeah, all companies go through those tough times. You know, you look at Nike, it's just this enormous company and stuff, but reading the parts when he doesn't know how he's going to make payroll and stuff like that, and thinking back to some of my companies thinking, you know, we go through the same things. And, looking at the Forbes 30 under 30, you just open that and go through it and you're thinking, oh, these guys just haven't made, they've got everything figured out. They don't have the struggles. But the reality is that you still do go through all those struggles, and even in Elon Musk, his autobiography, he talks about that on when he was starting things up. He had all this money he got out of PayPal, but he had reinvested everything to the point that it's like, how are we going to make payroll this week? And so, yeah, everyone goes through it. And I think that's a great thing for entrepreneurs to hear and understand, looking at someone like you with all these accolades and everything you've done, but understanding it wasn't easy. And there were some difficult times. And just because you're recognized as the Forbes 30 under 30 doesn't mean you're on top of the world every second of the day. So.
Right. And, that was a point in my life also where I think that recognition definitely sparked like a series of conversations with myself of like, if that recognition wasn't enough, then I'm obviously in it for the wrong reasons. And, that kind of juncture is always interesting where maybe you were in it for the right reasons in the beginning, but it doesn't mean that it won't change. Like 6 years is a long time. Like your relationship with your business can ebb and flow, but it takes those like moments, like getting a huge recognition like that to kind of shake you awake of like, hey, like if you're not proud of this, then you're obviously in it for the wrong reasons. You really need to reassess what you're doing here and why you're doing it, and if this is the right thing for you to continue on. So yeah, those hard moments are definitely there. Even like a bunch of my friends who are on the Forbes 30 under 30, like same issues, same conflict, same internal turmoil of like, recognition was cool, but I'm really struggling over here.
Now, was that when you were still doing the Water Collective, or is that when you were doing the Ascent Strategy? That you got
it was
the
when
30?
I was doing Water Collective.
Okay, so
yeah, it was Water Collective, yeah.
So then you, how did you finalize the Water Collective? I mean, is that another thing where somebody else just took it over and kept going with it, or?
So that's something that's kind of like still on pause because we eventually so we had a team of 6 in Cameroon, and the idea was to hand off the business to them because the initial vision was to always not be another US NGO telling Cameroonians what to do, but for us to build the foundation so that Cameroonians can eventually take over. So that's still the vision, but unfortunately Cameroon is in a civil war right now. So we had to pause on that. So hopefully, like in the near future, if that ever ends in our lifetime, we can kind of restart that. But yeah, we're on pause right now with that because of political unrest.
That's totally understandable.
Yeah.
So now in the position you're at, where you're helping female founders with their businesses, if you look back at those 2 ventures you had, from each of those, what's the biggest lesson you learned as an entrepreneur from those 2 experiences?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think that the biggest lesson I've learned is mindset is everything. Like you can learn everything from a logistical perspective of like, how do I do financial projections correctly? And what's the best inventory count? And what's my strategy for that? What's like my 5-year strategic plan? Like you can do all of that, but if your mindset is not in the right place, none of that matters. You will always self-sabotage yourself and prevent yourself from reaching the highest point because, you bring up Shoe Dog, like that's a great book that I really think like a strong takeaway from that book is it's not so much like the person who is the smartest that lasts. It's the person who has the most grit and lasts the longest through the challenges and like solves them and moves on. That is the one that survives. And there are plenty of other books like Ben Horowitz books. I think it's like Hard Things About Hard Things. Like that's another takeaway from that book is like, I'm not the smartest person, but I just stuck it out the longest. And that's the only reason why I'm around still. And that's all mindset related. Is just like how much mental fortitude do you have to get through these insane challenges and keep on surviving and not being tired of having to problem solve too, because a lot of people get exhausted by that. So yeah, I think for me, mindset was the biggest lesson and why that's something I prioritize now before anything else.
So when you're working with these female entrepreneurs now, I mean, I coach as well. And so I know how it works is, everyone's different. And some people, it seems like they're just wired that way and others aren't. What strategies do you do, or what do you do when you've got someone that doesn't have that mindset to really stick through it? How do you help them figure that part out?
Yeah, so I think that I kind of look at it as an onion, and the fact that I can't help the whole onion, but I can help really, really well, like a specific layer of that onion. So for some people, I tell them straight out, like, you're not ready for me yet. And here's another person that I can refer you to help you, since you seem to be like in the beginning stages of exploring mindset work and kind of getting through those obstacles. So yeah, for me, it's really about just knowing where my strengths are and recognizing the people that are ready for me. And if they're not, letting them know like who to go to. So yeah, I think for me, it's really all about like, what's my layer of the onion that I'm really good at and how can I help that person? But yeah, I mean, I think that when the person's not ready and in the right place yet, I usually pose the question to them of how badly do you want this? Because if you really, really want this business to grow and get to where it needs to be, then you would be willing to sit down uncomfortably with a coach or a psychotherapist or whoever needs to be in the room at the time. And you would be willing to ask yourself the hard questions. And if you're not, then you're just not ready for entrepreneurship in general.
Right.
Is there any particular niche you like to work with as far as like what women are trying to create, or are you just open to anything that they're trying to create?
I usually work with women who their business is an extension of their life's work or whatever they're passionate about in life in general. So that can be anyone from a graphic designer to someone who makes jewelry to someone who has like a tech course. As long as it's really clear to me that this product or service is coming from like a well of inspiration that they want to pursue for a really long time. I also work with a lot of businesses that have some kind of like social impact or environmental conscious aspect to them, because that kind of aligns with the initial mission there. So yeah, it's kind of a mix of those things.
Okay.
Great. So just with a bit of time we have left, tell us more about what you're doing right now, what you're passionate about, and where you're going with things.
Yeah, so I'm really passionate about helping women step into their sovereignty. I think that there's a lot of us have been raised to kind of be small under man's shadow, to like not go for it. The fact that you can't be a shark and like someone who's like feminine at the same time. Like I think that women struggle with a lot of imbalances that have been ingrained in them since they were kids, and having to kind of dissolve that once you get older and you're in the mindset of being an entrepreneur, it's really, really difficult. It's a lot of reversing you have to do. So for me, I'm really passionate about helping women through that process so that they can step into their power and have the capability to turn whatever vision they have in their head and make money off of it. Like, I think we all deserve that. We all deserve to live a life exactly how we imagine it. So for me, my big focus is always marketing and sales. I'm kind of like, if you can't make any money, then you digging through your financial projections and your operation plans, like it doesn't mean anything. So that's my specialty. That's what I work with women on mostly. And I do that through coaching, and I have like some group programs and one-on-one programs that I do that through to kind of accommodate people's different learning styles.
Very cool. So also, if any of our listeners are hearing this and they're like, this is the person I connect with, this is the person I need, how do they find you?
Yeah, so I'm really active on Instagram, constantly putting free advice, information on there. My handle is Ascent with Sophia. And then my website, ascent-strategy.com, that has a bunch of blogs, free resources that entrepreneurs can dig through for days. I have a huge backlog. So yeah, those are the two places that I'm most active and that people can reach me at.
Excellent. And I'll make sure those are posted in our show notes too. So anyone that didn't catch those can just go to the notes and click on them.
Right.
So one other question for you. We've had a few books come up, and I'm a real believer in personal development and self-education and stuff. And so I'd love to hear, I know some of those you're talking about the inspiration they gave, but what is the most inspirational book that you can think you've read?
The most inspirational book. Ooh, that's a hard one. I think that, so one book I always recommend to people that's like less mindset-y. I mean, like it's a little mindset oriented, but the book Profit First by Mike McCallum. I recommend that to everyone. I think from like a money mindset perspective, it's such a subtle trick that he teaches you, but when you do it, you're just like, oh, like I'm showing profit in my business for the first time because of this trick that he taught me. So I really recommend that. I think because money mindset is such a struggle for entrepreneurs, especially in the beginning, reading a book like that really orients you into the right direction. So that's a really great one. For women, I really recommend Big Magic by Elizabeth Gilbert, even if you're a man. But I think that what's really special about that book is that it talks about, Elizabeth Gilbert is a writer, but she talks about her craft, and it's really applicable to entrepreneurs. And she talks about just like the specialness of who you are and why, even though you have an idea and you might be feeling imposter syndrome of like, why am I doing this if all my competitors are creating the same thing? She really brings out why you need to be the person that's doing it. So yeah, I think that's a really, really special book too. Super.
Did you have anything else, Heidi?
No, great. I'm gonna have to look at that Big Magic. That sounds really interesting. And the other book is so funny. That's two podcasts that book has come up in, and I have yet to look at that one. So maybe I need to pay attention to that one too.
I just recently I recently read that one, but Big Magic is one I haven't read, so I wrote that one down too. So thank you for that. Well, yeah. Sophia, thank you. It was great to have you on here. We'll make sure to get all your links out in our show notes so people can contact you. But thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thank you so much for having me. This was really fun.
Yeah, thanks. It was really enjoyable and very informative.
Absolutely. All right. Bye-bye.
Hey, thanks for being with us. I hope you enjoyed that episode and you got a lot of value out of it. Please subscribe and make sure you don't miss any future episodes. And please come visit our websites, jeffheggie.com and ecibfs.com. Thanks again for being with us and hope to see you next time.